Hello and welcome to my channel, which features archival audio and records of early recordings on some of the earliest audio formats, including vinyl, 78s, and cylinders. And this is a follow-up video on one I made some months ago documenting the restoration process on the reproducer on this Orfola deluxe phonograph from the late 20s. And I documented how I was able to restore this phonograph, which I got for $10, and was able to restore it only spending about $3. The reproducer here is half metal, half plastic, because I had to 3D print the back of it, because this is the original back to it. As you can see, it's very corroded and very weathered, counting the rubber gasket on the back, which is not really rubber anymore. And those are the pieces which I found strewn around inside of it when I bought it. So today I'm going to show you how this working phonograph, which is pretty standard for the portable phonographs of the era as far as design goes, and explain how it works. Of course, it is an entirely mechanical mechanism. There is no electricity between the sound we hear and the performer who breathes into the horn in a studio somewhere in the Wayback Machine. And first we'll start with the reproducer. Inside the reproducer is a thin metal diaphragm, and it is attached to the front of the reproducer, which holds a steel needle via a set screw here, which has to be screwed back in every time the needle is replaced, which you do so after every play of a record. Don't worry, the needles are cheap. You can get, I buy the Chamberlain needles, so they sell them for like $4, $5 for a pack of 50, so that's a few hours of listening for $4. I'm not going to complain about that. And when the needle is vibrated back and forth as it rides down the laterally cut grooves on the early shellac 78s, it vibrates the diaphragm, and the diaphragm vibrates the air, which is then channeled through as sound this tone arm, which is open to this wooden box which is buried inside here, and the sound comes out of there and it is amplified. And how the volume works on this is these things are quite loud when you want them to be, and different phonographs by different makes, different companies, had different methods of controlling the volume. And how you do it on these needle type phonograph is this is where I keep my new needles, you have different sizes of needles. This is a small needle, and this is the loudest needle, siren spear point needles. They also have medium, large, and then the spear point. These are the soft tone small needles. And of course the larger ones are, just as I said, larger. They're bigger around. They're not particularly longer. When they're bigger around, that allows you to get more sound out of the very small grooves in the record. So, pretty remarkable machine. And up here is the container where you can hold some records with this, and strap them in with this leather strap, which doesn't really feel like leather anymore. It's could use some treatment, but I don't use that anyway too much, because honestly I don't trust it. But no, I have carried them in there, and it is pretty safe, pretty convenient. When I got it for $10, there was $5 worth of records in there, so, and they were all in one piece, so. But I didn't check. I didn't like get all my selections that I got from the record store, shove them in there, and then say, how much is this phonograph? They just happen to be in there. And this is the brake for the turntable. And this is the speed control. I'll explain how both those work in a minute. And this, as you saw, holds my needles. And this is what holds the crank, which goes in there like that. Another note about the needles real quick is that steel needles are sold today, but if you want to buy the tungsten needles, which were sold in the 20s, and they don't make them anymore to my knowledge, and they are much more durable than steel, because the purpose of the steel needles is to get the needle to wear out before the record does, because the needle actually wears off. And when you get a needle that's played a record, you can roll it in your fingers and see a little glimmer of light on one side of it, because one side's flatter than the other. And that's why you don't want to play it multiple times on the same needle, because it will damage the record. And you will even be able to see it visually. And you'll definitely be able to hear the difference if you listen closely. So the tungsten needles, like I said, can only be found as original, and of course they're significantly more expensive. I do have some, but they don't really sound much different to my knowledge, but I don't use them too much because I have no problem paying the $4 instead of using a tungsten needle that I'm never going to be able to find again. So the clockwork mechanism that runs the turntable is run by that spring. So let's take a look at that. I have removed all the screws, and this is what holds in the top lid of the phonograph. So you're going to want to remove this before you remove all these. And make sure the crank is removed. And this screw is stripped out in there. I didn't do it, so I'm just going to let it be. So there's the crank shaft, which screws on here, and you can see the governor in here, and I think I have the brake on. Yeah, I do. And the spring is held in here, and when I turn the turntable, it doesn't work this way, but am I turning it the wrong direction? I'm turning it the wrong direction, yeah. I could have removed the tone arm, but so there's the, honestly, if you're going to do this, I would suggest removing the tone arm. But for time's sake, that's how it works. And this piece of felt right here, essentially, is what controls the speed, because when I move the speed control here, it moves in and out ever so slightly. And this is a governor right here, so when it stops this from, it slows this disc here, it prevents this governor from speeding up anymore. Now that we've seen the inside, I'm going to take this turntable off. And these are the screws that hold in the crank assembly. And these screws are held in by a rubber, or what was rubber at one time. And this is the speed control here. And the brake is a very simple mechanism, as you can see. All it does is, there's a piece of leather here, and it rubs up against the inside lip of the turntable. When I got it, the brake didn't work too well, because this leather was worn down, so I just took some pliers and worked it out a little bit. So So that's a walkthrough of the mechanism behind the portable Orfola phonograph. Feel free to drop a comment if you have any questions. Please subscribe if you wish to see more similar content of some of my favorite music that I pull off of my shelves, and I hope there's something in my collection of videos that you found particularly enjoyable or entertaining, and if so, please let me know so. Thank you very much.